what I'm wondering about is if I can even use. I know on my phone thing it can like cut people out, so I almost wonder if I can do something with this, but maybe probably not.
Maybe.
It don't really matter. It's all Adri stuff, so it doesn't matter. Beautiful flowers and things. So
It's always fun, but I don't know. Sometimes I think it's distracting too. It's like because you're always like fading in and out, and like
true.
last night with this chair, that chair over there, it kept like you have to wait till I post that video, but it was really it just kept like beaming in, and it was like chair disappear, and I was like, that's weird.
That's because Grandpa's sitting in the chair.
Grandpa sitting in the window.
Risk is our business.
Out there. That way.
What happened?
Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Rock and roll!
6.
We're not afraid of diversity. We don't persecute it, we embrace it.
At least I won't die alone.
Join our Federation of Planets and reach for the stars.
Those were the days.
Okay, well. Welcome back to the Retrek Review. My name is Will. This is my co-host,
Caleb.
On this channel, this show, we cover Star Trek. We watch a new episode of Star Trek each week. And this week, we are watching an episode from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The episode entitled Children of the Comet, which is number 2 in the series. It first aired May 12th, 2022. It was written by Henry Alonzo Myers and Sarah Tarkoff and directed by Maya Virilio. So the synopsis for it was, while on a survey mission, the USS Enterprise discovers a comet is going to strike an inhabited planet. They try to reroute the comet, only to find that an ancient alien relic buried on the comet's icy surface is somehow stopping them. As the away team try to unlock the relic's secrets, Pike and Number 1 deal with a group of zealots who want to prevent the USS Enterprise from interfering. So that's our synopsis. But before we get into the breakdown of the episode, let's hear what Caleb thought of the episode.
This was a great episode, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like I really enjoyed it. Honestly, it's it kind of brings you back to things that make Star Trek like cool. Like for me,
yeah,
it's like this kind of like not really like important plot piece, but it shows you like what the Enterprise is like doing in space, like why they're out there. It's like help certain species and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just cool. It kind of reminded me like it could have been like a standalone episode of like Enterprise. Something like that would happen, you know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. But yeah, it had a lot of action, and you got to see more of like kind of characters that you saw in the first episode, like kind of get their legs a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely has a standalone feel. There's some stuff that carries over, obviously, from the first episode, but it's definitely the nice new thing where it's serialized television. Like, you know, it's the big thing is like you got to watch every episode, but it has also that nice episodic feel, which is traditional Trek. Enterprise got away from it a little bit by season 2. And especially when you get into the Xindi stuff, but it didn't really hurt the show too badly. But
no, not really.
But going forward, all of the other stuff is like, hey, you need to have seen everything. And it's an overarching like story. So that's like new. That's just how television is now.
Yeah.
There's no more
Yeah, it
like
has to
tune
be.
in and just watch whatever's happening next week. And who cares if you didn't see it? It's all like, you better have seen every single episode. Otherwise, you're missing out.
I don't know what I like better either, but I go either way on that.
I think for me, I think for Star Trek, I think when you watch, once we get into like the older stuff, like the 60s material and the 80s material,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where it's like Smallville. It's like it was what they would term it as like freak of the week.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it
yeah.
was like every, and so on the
That's
show,
rough.
they would call it like Alien of the Week. And it's just, that's all it is. It's like, okay, what are we getting into
Yeah.
this week? And that's it.
X-Files was known for that.
Right. Okay.
They
so
did
X-Files,
like a monster, and then like the next week it was more about like Mulder's story, like fighting his sister.
Right. So I think this depends on how captivating you make it. Because honestly, if you can't keep the audience's attention from week to week,
Yeah.
then you're gonna have to serialize it. You have to have
Yeah.
like, okay, well, we'll do something, a slow burn of a storyline. But if you every week you can come up with something really cool and interesting, then let's
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Because some of the Zindi stuff for me kind of dragged on a bit.
Mhm.
It was a whole season based on that like overarching storyline,
yeah.
and I don't think it really needed to be.
No.
But even then, they found a couple times where they did a couple standalone like episodes. But honestly, for me, like the best episodes of Enterprise are kind of like the standalone. I mean,
Mhm.
there's like an overarching story,
Of course.
continuation story. But like, so specifically the one where like Trip and Malcolm, the episode starts where they're in the shuttle
Oh yeah.
and they think the Enterprise is like blown up,
Mhm.
and you have like as a viewer, you have like no idea what's going on
Yeah.
until like the middle of the episode. Like those episodes to me are they're so good.
Yeah.
Like, they just
That's
characters
easily
can just kind of
probably
stand
one-
apart,
Yeah, that's easily probably in the top 3 best episodes that Enterprise has.
Yeah, it's probably one. Yeah, I would definitely say it's one of the top 3.
It's
That's a great episode.
Yeah, and it's a thing where it really honestly shows you how good like Connor Trenier and Dominic
Oh,
Keating
yeah.
are, like, because
They have to carry the episode.
So
Yeah, but even as a show point of view too, it helps like the character grow. It helps you like understand this character more
Yeah.
and see like why he makes choices later on.
it's true.
Like Malcolm is very much by the book. He's just like, okay, he's accepted his stuff. He's accepted his fate.
Yeah.
Trip is not that type of bird. Trip is
No.
he's gonna run out of oxygen trying to find out like the last like wire he can jump to give him engines.
Yeah, 5 more seconds of oxygen.
You understand the characters now. Now moving forward after that episode, moving forward, like you understand like why Trip is in the engine room fixing this and not worried about anything else. Like you understand,
Right.
and I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of get more of an understanding that Malcolm is like, he's very by the book and he's very
Yeah.
proper. So when things don't go right or things are off protocol, he's like upset.
Yeah.
Right. Like it.
Yeah, and then there's that episode where he tells Archer like he wishes Archer would like discipline people more, and he's like too laxing as a captain and stuff. I don't like that because like, yeah, it speaks to his character,
Yeah.
But that's kind of how this episode felt to me. It was, they went to observe this comet, and that's what they did. The whole episode, it was about this comet,
Just focus on like what's
Yeah.
happening with this comet. Yeah.
And it was
Okay,
cool.
well, perfect. That goes right in. So we start off with a cadet's log, stardate 2912.4. The Enterprise is surveying the Persephone system, where the crew is studying the behavior of an ancient comet, C/2260-Quinton. I, however, am doing a rotation in landing party readiness protocols, which doesn't really involve comets, ancient or otherwise, so duties are pretty slow at the moment, except, of course, for a recent invitation to dinner at the captain's cabin, for which I have been encouraged by Lieutenant Ortegas to dust off my dress uniform.
Yeah.
So we start with the people of a desert village are going about their normal routine. Some have their eyes drawn upwards where a comet crosses the sky. So we kind of get this interesting little start of the show. Like, who are these people? Why do we care about these people?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the thing you talked about, was it in the Star Trek Adventures thing, or maybe a different episode, or just something else we were talking about maybe on your channel? Where because they're like in a desert arid area, like they themselves are like lizard scale, like
Yeah.
it was, which was a nice, I like that. It was a nice touch.
Yeah, the alien character design was great. And, for what it was, you only ever saw like 2 of them, like maybe 3 times in the episode.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was a cool design. I liked it.
Yeah, the way that they're like scales, like kind of, it was like multicolored and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, so the comet C2260-Quentin is making its way through the Persephone system, and the USS Enterprise has been sent to survey it. On board, Uhura has been summoned to dine with Captain Pike and his captain, and Ortegas told her to wear her dress uniform. As she steps off the turbo lift, she encounters Ortegas, who is not in uniform at all, and Uhura realizes she is being hazed. Ortegas admits it, saying people got bored on a small ship. As Uhura turns to change, Ortegas warns that she does not want to be late to the captain's table. The helm officer jokes that Uhura has her first square of Enterprise bingo, reminding her that even she had been a cadet once and subject to all the traditions that came with it. Uhura asks about what awaits her, and Ortegas explains that Captain Pike prefers to have regular members of the crew, not just the command staff, so that he can keep informed about the goings on aboard the ship. He might ask her questions. Uhura is less than enthused, thinking on how her father mentioned she was unburdened by conversational boundaries. So this will be fun for you then, Ortegas notes as they reach Pike's quarters. So basically just get that Ortegas is, her character is kind of interesting in the sense of she doesn't really fit the mold of any Star Trek character. She's kind of wildly different than anything
I can see that
to come or has happened, really. I mean, but that's okay. I mean, she's just different.
Yeah. Well, it was cool too because like I didn't really get that O'Hara was a cadet in the first episode.
Oh yeah.
And I assume that's what her badge is.
Right? The longer like
badge.
Extended triangle thing on her delta is indicating that she's a cadet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool though, because I like getting to see her character more in this episode.
So the cool thing is, so that you can even understand it probably even a little bit further, is she's not an ensign, which means she hasn't graduated the Starfleet Academy. So by making her a cadet, she's still technically in school. So it'd be like having a college kid on a field trip type thing.
Yeah, right. She's just there for like work experience, essentially.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Which is what we'll get into, which will sort of explains why Uhura is the way that she is. So Pike himself, also dressed informally and wearing an apron, greets them, chuckling at seeing Uhura in her dress uniform, and invites them in. Una is among the first to greet them, while Pike attends to the ribs he was cooking. His cabin appears to resemble equal parts kitchen and dining room, with some preparing food while others wait. Uhura goes around the room until she comes across an Anar cutting up vegetables and offers to help him. His reply is a curt no. Spock, standing nearby, says she has offended Commander Hemmer, the new chief engineer. Uhura apologizes, saying that she was drawn to help people with sensory impairments. Hemmer notes that humans in his condition might consider themselves impaired. Spock explains that his other senses compensate for his blindness, to which Hemmer amends that his other senses were superior. Uhura recalls reading that the Anar have precognitive abilities. Hemmer had known she would ask about that, not because of precognition, but because everyone always did. He suddenly raises a hand and catches a carrot Spock tosses to him in midair, commenting on how he telegraphed his throw telepathically, which was Spock's intention to illustrate Hemmer's enhanced senses. Uhura thinks this is another example of hazing before saying to Hemmer in Andorian that he needed to get out more. Seriously, she adds in Vulcan, for Spock's benefit, before going back to Federation standard and saying she needed a drink as she goes to get one. I like her, Hemmer comments, and Spock concurs. So your first
Yeah, it was cool.
legit Enterprise reference.
Yeah, it was really cool seeing him. Well, I think you see him in the end of the first episode too, right?
Yeah.
Where he beams up.
He beams up. Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty cool that like the Anar are part of like the Federation, like moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's not like they're in anything else. They're only in Star Trek Enterprise. So for him to be on it, it's a literal direct connection to Star Trek Enterprise.
That's cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I noticed him at first and I thought maybe he was like just kind of like a modernized like Andorian.
Yeah.
But then in this episode, obviously, the whole like telepathy and pale skin, and like I was like, okay, cool. I got it. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It makes me wish like Shran showed up again because I really I love his character.
Yeah, I'm trying to think going forward if I'm sure maybe this new season that's coming out. But I don't think Jeffrey Combs is in any episode of this season. But he's I think I don't think Next Generation, but everything else he's been in. So he's in Deep Space Nine, he's in Voyager, he's in Enterprise, obviously.
Oh, really?
I want to say he's even in Discovery. I know he's in Lower Decks. Yeah, he's I don't know if he's in Picard. He may not be in Picard, but yeah, he's a guy that's like he's kind of like the Cliff of Star Trek. Like they'll get him in as much as they can.
Oh, that makes me happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Now he won't show up as Shran, but he plays other other characters. And
that's cool.
It'll be a while before we get there, but he's in Deep Space Nine like almost every episode.
Yeah.
He plays like 4 different characters.
I thought I recognized him in Enterprise, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. He literally plays like legitimately like 3 different characters on the show.
That's great. That's great. Well, they kind of did that with Data.
Oh yeah, Brett Spiner comes back and
so having him come back in Enterprise, being like the eugenics doctor, like scientist guy, and I kind of appreciate that because you're like, okay, well, he looks almost identical, right? As that character, but then the way that ends is like he's gonna start developing like robotics.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, that's kind of cool that like the first, the robots would kind of look like him, like moving forward.
Yeah.
Like I like that little detail. That's kind of cool. But going back to this scene, this to me is like, what an upgrade the captain's like quarters and like and like his eating area, right? Because I'm so used to seeing like Archer's like dining quarters. Like captain's dining quarters is like a table and it's like 3 people there.
Right.
And he's got that window. Yeah. And now this is like, it's like this is like his room essentially. Right. Yeah. But he also uses it as part of his captain, like entertaining thing. Yeah. And I just love that. I love that it's like super open and like able to like support a bunch of people to like, have dinner, and there's a full bar. That fireplace is probably a little impractical on a spaceship.
I was going to say
space that has, oxygen has to be made consecutively, but the fire takes, but it's cool. Like it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool.
This is the first thing I thought of when I was like, that's really stupid to have on like a spaceship that has to be like capsuled and that's a little stupid.
It is, but you have found one of those things that the fans complain about in this episode.
It's just. Yeah, it's just stupid. Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? is it Star Trek? It could just be a hologram projector.
Yeah,
It could just be projecting flames for like that
True.
sense of like
that's very true.
coziness that humans
Yeah.
like, you know. I can let that slide. It's
Yeah, it's kinda
ridiculous.
like what you do
If it's an
when-
open flame, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was just say it's kind of like what you do when we come over. You put it on the TV, like a nice little
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
right? Yeah, so it could just
Exactly.
be that. It's just
Yeah.
a video playing.
Yeah. So yeah, realistic
That's what we'll
projection.
say it is.
That's what I thought it was. That's what I but I love that Pike is like super laid back and he's having, you know, people come on and he's got like the staff there
Yeah,
and it's just like super laid back. It's not like super formal.
well, it's kind of like Archer early, right? Like first season Archer, where he's kind of
Yeah.
more like just happy to be out in space and exploring and doing things, and he's a lot more chummy. And then
Yeah.
then stuff happens and he changes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
He kind of gets like burdened, he feels the burden of actually being
Wait. Yeah.
like the captain of the Federation, like of a ship that's going to bring about the Federation. So
But so Pike is a cool character to me because like even though he has this knowledge of in 10 years basically his life will be over, he still enjoys being on the Enterprise. He still likes what he does.
yeah,
You know, so much to like he went back to space knowing that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I just like that. I liked his like sense of duty and but
Yeah.
he doesn't take it like super seriously. He's not, you know, he's not a jerk.
true.
I like that.
He's not stuffy like some other captains that you'll get to know.
Yeah.
So at the captain's table, Pike regales his guests with an amusing story about when he was an ensign, tripping over the fallen pants of a Nausicaan he was pursuing, and how his commanding lieutenant thought that perhaps security was not the best fit for him. Spock admits he has never understood the human inclination to laugh at other people's misfortune, calling it impolite. Nurse Chapel reminds him that this is what made it funny. Pike adds that sometimes things go so wrong that it makes one laugh. Uhura rises from the table to pour herself a drink, humming a tune to herself. When Pike asks about it, she explains it was a bad habit, a folk song from her native Kenya. Pike recalls the achingly beautiful sight of Lake Simbi Nyama, which he had visited several times. Uhura grew up not too far from there. Given how few cadets are taken in aboard the Enterprise, Pike thinks Uhura would have had to have been quite impressive to make the cut. Noting that she spoke 12 languages, she corrects him by saying she spoke 37. Since Kenya alone had 22 languages, she felt the best way to be understood by people was to speak their language. So she learned them all and found it easy to do so. Pike knows she's on the landing party rotation and might find it difficulty jumping from speciality to speciality. With a glance to Una. It was one time, she says. But is sure Uhura has chosen one she likes. His voice catches as he asks where she sees herself in 10 years, again thinking of where he knows he will be. Uhura admits that she isn't sure she considers herself at all that Starfleet, which surprises Pike, who notes how she worked her way there, beating out several thousand applicants to get a posting on the Enterprise. Uhura replies that she wanted to study alien languages and had originally intended to go to the University of Nairobi, as both her parents had taught there. A week before she was due to start, her parents were killed in a shuttle accident, along with her older brother. She couldn't go to the campus, feeling her family's absence. She felt she never fit in anywhere anymore. She had gone to live with her grandmother, who had been in Starfleet and talked often about it, and so ran away to the academy. Pike is impressed by her honesty and hopes she can find a place where she does fit, wherever that might be. I'll start off first. So do you remember the Enterprise episode where Trip and Archer are arrested and they're on that like criminal barge?
Yeah.
Remember the big nasty guy has like the predator kind of mouth and face? Who keeps
Yes.
like punching Trip and the other guy, and
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a Nausicaan. So when he says Nausicaan, that's what that is. So just
Gotcha.
imagine
Okay.
that type of guy running down the street with no pants on. That's
Perfect.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
So I didn't look into it. I probably should have researched it a little bit, but the actor who plays her, Nichelle Nichols, like later in Star Trek,
Yeah.
I was curious when this episode was playing, when I was watching it, I was like, is that her story? Did Nichelle Nichols' parents and brother die and she lived with her grandmother? I don't know if
Oh.
that's true, but I just feel like I don't think we ever know about Uhura's backstory in the original
Yeah.
Star Trek. She's just a character. Like, it's just like, hey, there she is.
Yeah,
So
right.
I wondered if that was a nod to her, or just they just wanted to make Uhura's like backstory like really sad. So
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah, it also made me wonder if there ever been would have been a time that like we've seen her grandma, because like her grandma was in Starfleet.
Mm,
But that also reminded me like how far forward we are from like Enterprise
true.
too, because like Enterprise ends. Well, the episodes I haven't, I know like the Federation starts with Archer,
Yeah.
but yeah. So for her grandma to have joined the Federation and then like retire essentially, I mean, you're talking a long period of time.
Yeah, you're probably talking 20 to 30 years after Enterprise, her grandmother was
Yeah.
born.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because you think about it, she's probably 60, 70 years old. So,
Yeah.
you're talking 2190, 2180, somewhere in there. She's probably born, her grandmother. And
Yeah.
the Federation was founded in 2161. So, quite a while. But still, like,
Yeah.
it would probably be most likely her great grandmother, her great grandparents. They probably were
Yeah.
born when the Federation was founded.
Well. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It is really cool. Okay, walking in the corridors with Spock, Uhura wonders if she blew it. Spock assures her that Pike values honesty as he does. However, he adds that many, himself included, saw Starfleet as a lifelong dream, and if Uhura didn't feel she wanted to walk on that path, she should step aside for someone who did. Kind of gives her a talking
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting to see that was Spock's lifelong dream too.
Yeah, you kind of get this feeling that
Yeah.
as it goes on that he values Vulcan principles and ideals, and that he puts all of that Vulcan belief like at the forefront, but you kind of understand that in the heart of him, he's like
Yeah.
human. He has like human feelings and human type of connections.
Yeah. I really do like his character on this show.
It's surprising. The thing I tell you, Spock is a really specifically unique character to try to imitate.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I know.
it's really funny that two guys, Zachary Quinto and Ethan Peck here,
Oh, yeah, the guy from the movie.
the guy from the movie.
Yeah, he was good too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's really great. And it's and the thing that it's even more telling of how good Ethan Peck is Zachary Quinto got to meet and talk to and like study
Yeah.
from Leonard Nimoy before he passed away.
Right. Yeah.
So that also lends to why Zachary Quinto is so good in those movies, because he's literally got to talk to Leonard Nimoy and got any type of pointers about what like what do I do here. Ethan Peck doesn't. All he has is like footage and like probably interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to how he plays it so good. He has that humor that Leonard Nimoy was able to infuse into the character unintentionally.
Yeah, I love that. I love the you get to it too, but when he basically tells her like the odds,
Oh,
and she's like, is that your version of a pep talk? And he's like, yes, I've been working on my pep talks. It's like, that was horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, like, I love that.
Yeah.
He's playing the straight man, basically. He's just,
Exactly.
but you can see too that, he's got a little bit of emotion and stuff too, because like he doesn't have to like tell Uhura that like she did a great job like on her first mission.
Right.
He doesn't have to do that, but obviously that's like a human, commemorate, giving her appraisal.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like him, and it's funny. I texted you. I was like, why is he so familiar? Like, why does he look so familiar? Because he looks so familiar to me. He looks like, but I don't know. I looked up his IMDb, and nothing really on there that I've seen or like loved. So
he kind of looks like the actor from the NBC show Grimm. Have you ever seen Grimm?
Oh yeah,
he kind of looks like the lead guy
a little bit. He looks like that in a mix of what's the guy from Park and Rec, the one that ends up marrying Leslie Knope?
Oh, Adam Scott.
Yeah, he looks a little bit like that. Like
he does
mixed.
Look a little bit like Adam Scott. That you say that. That's funny. That's really.
I was like, maybe it's his brother. No,
gosh, could you imagine Adam Scott playing him? It would be.
He'd probably be pretty good.
Comedy.
Actually.
He would be fun. He'd be really good at it. But I feel like he would try to push the envelope, would make him laugh a lot more.
In Parks, he plays. He's a huge nerd.
Yeah,
he's not like super over the top. I don't know.
That's true. Maybe he'll show up. You never know.
Yeah,
you don't know all of Spock's relatives. So, in his cabin, Una knows Pike has asked the same where will you be question to many cadets, but it felt different that time, wondering if it had to do with what he had told her about his experience on Borath. Pike,
probably not.
No, probably unlikely.
I doubt it.
Pike concedes that knowing one's future took the fun out of imagining it. Una asks if he had considered his fate wasn't written, but Pike recites a series of names. And Una realizes he knows the names of the cadets he will save in the accident that will cripple him several years in the future. Pike has been repeating their names to himself over and over as a reminder to stay the course. Una refuses to believe that there is no other way. Just as the comm chimes, summoning Pike to the bridge, Spock has found a problem with the Comet. So, pretty interesting that we get like a peel back of more than just, hey, you're going to get crippled and, bad things are going to happen to you. Like, also, you're going to be a hero.
I like the fact that he knows the names too. That's a pretty, it's a pretty good, touch too.
I don't think I'm going too far ahead. I can't remember, but I feel like they don't. So I always wondered, like, how does he know their names?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a thing where he knows what their faces look like. But again, it's like, it's kind of hard to gauge what a teenager from a child, because they're like children in the picture at the end. And obviously they're like cadets or whatever by the time he's rescuing them. So
I assume that like he, because he's crippled essentially from the radiation, but he's still like labeled a hero, and I'm sure like the names would have all been named that he saved.
Oh, absolutely. So but he doesn't have access to like future records. He's only seeing like his, like through his eyes, what his future is.
Well, that's what I mean. So like if he's seeing his future, he would see that like he's at like the award ceremony and like those kids like thank him specifically.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Okay. They don't really show that. I don't know if you caught it last they basically
video. Just kind of show him like turning to the door and like sealing the door.
Right. Yeah. But they all they show in the Discovery. I put the clip in last week's episode. He touches the thing. He's in the room. Things are blowing up. He puts his hand on the thing. He's burnt. And then it cuts and he's in the corridor. And then you see him in the wheelchair, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's I mean, who knows? Doesn't really matter. I just was like, how does he actually know these people's names?
Yeah. I mean, who knows how far he saw?
True. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Spock shows a simulation, which was kind of funny because it was like, oh my, something's wrong with the comet.
They
And then it was
immediately
like,
go, yeah, and immediately blows up the planet. He's like, no, that's what could happen.
could happen, indicating that the comet will impact the surface of the nearby planet Persephone 3 in 2 days, leaving no survivors. The planet is M class and inhabited by a pre-warp civilization called the Deleb. As the Deleb are not technologically advanced enough to move it themselves, Spock proposes using 4 ion engines to divert the comet's path and account for its rotation. La'an suggested using photon torpedoes as launch vehicles, which would take about an hour to retrofit, which Hemmer in turn calls a rosy assessment, as he would be the one doing the work. Pike orders them to get it done, as they had a planet to save before breakfast. I love this job, he adds to Una. But as the torpedoes are deployed, they impact against a force field, leaving Pike wondering how a comet would put one up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. You could tell like that's like where, like the commercial. But I like that. I like that cliffhanger before like, oh, okay, so this thing's got a force field. That's great.
Not something you would expect to see.
Yeah. I like too how Pike as the captain, he asked like his like security officer what like the science, has Spock, the science officer, like what does he think? He gives an idea, and then he turns to his number one and he says, what do you think? And she says, yeah, that could possibly work. And he's like, all right, let's do it. So he's getting like everybody's opinion on the thing,
Yeah.
And then so even like the security officer, she says like, yeah, we can retrofit the cannons for that. But then like I love too like the Hammer's there and he's like, yeah, I'm the one that has to do it basically. So.
Yeah. It's a cool thing. It's a cool beat that they continually will do in Star Trek, where everybody kind of sits around and talks about the problem.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that it's a shipwide thing,
Yeah.
I also like seeing the chief engineer like on the bridge.
Yeah.
Like just up there,
That's the kind of the thing that I try to encourage Adrian to do as captain. I'm like, okay, have a staff meeting to tell everybody what's going on. Because that's what they do in Star Trek. They all stand around and talk about it for a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what I forgot to say too, I appreciate is that we see it coming up too, but when they beam down, they have their communicators like on their belt.
Mm-hmm.
And they're they did a pretty good job making them kind of like modern, but also look like the ones from the original series.
Yeah.
The black and gold flip thing.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that they kind of tried to keep it, but I didn't notice the phaser. I thought the phaser looked pretty similar to like Kirk's era.
It's pretty similar. It's a little more sleek. Sleek. Not as like how back then, like in the 60s, like everything was like hard angles and like had like that fin
square
feel and stuff. Like, and now it's more like smooth and stuff. Like it generally looks
rounded. Because I just saw like she throws it to Spock, and then I really only noticed when he like puts it in his holster that it looks like the same. It's got the same dial on the top in it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool. Why wouldn't you, right? I mean, if you're making a Star Trek show that is set before the original series, why wouldn't you make the stuff
as close as you
like? Yeah,
right. Yeah, especially the bridge. Like, there's certain things that you're just like, listen, if you're going to be on the Enterprise and you're that close to Kirk's era, things need to look.
You got to have the chair.
Yeah.
It's funny too that Pike, that must just be a natural, like comfortable way to sit in that chair. Is that like because Pike crosses his leg, and that's very much like a Captain Kirk thing that he was always,
very much
like.
So.
That's I kind of like that.
Yeah, Shatner found what was comfortable to sitting in those things, so it just became the staple.
It's because the part where he sits is just a piece of plywood.
Yeah,
so he has to like cross his legs so he's not,
like
sitting on his spine.
Yeah. In the conference room, Uhura reports that they've tried hailing and scanning the comet, but find no life signs. However, there is an enormous, mostly subterranean structure which indicates alien intelligence. Pike has asked Lieutenant Kirk, the ship's xenoanthropologist, to join them and asks the crew for their opinions. It looks like a comet, has shields like a starship, and has a structure like a planet. Lon theorizes it could be a derelict spacecraft. Spock thinks the structure is the best place to investigate, noting that the shields only reacted to threats, meaning that they could beam to the surface. Pike asks Kirk if he knew of any civilizations that sprang from comets, and Kirk admits that this was the first he's heard of. Pike notes he likes the mustache, and Kirk suggests he try one himself. The captain then orders Leon, Spock, Kirk, and Uhura to suit up, noting that this would be Uhura's first landing party. You wanted to speak alien languages, he tells her. Go where the aliens are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty that whole interaction with like Kirk is pretty funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really good, actually. It's one of those things that it makes me laugh. And I'm not going to tell you why, but because it spoils things a little bit. But when you eventually see Kirk's brother, you're just like, that mustache comment's really funny. So
Good.
I like being in the dark and not knowing things. So
I do. Yeah, I love it so much. We're coming up on a part, like the only part I didn't super love in this episode too, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah. Tell you when we get there.
As they put on their environmental suits, Chapel explains to the landing party that the comet is bombarded by ridiculous amounts of cosmic rays, so that the hypo she would inject them with gave them 2 hours. Uhura finds the injection painful and thinks Chapel could have warned her. The nurse replies cheerfully that if she had, Uhura would have known it would hurt. Kirk winces a little as he receives this, while Lalonde does not seem affected at all, remaining all business as she tells the crew to weapon up. Chapel then comes to Spock asking if he was ready. Spock replies that he was ready for any kind of pain she could inflict, leading Chapel to joke that he was toying with her. Lalonde then tosses Spock a phaser. Suited up, the landing party heads to the transporter room. Lon reminds them that gravity will be a fraction of Earth's normal. They all power on their suits, and Spock gives the order to Chief Kyle to energize.
Yeah.
So something's going on there with Nurse Chapel.
Mhm. Yeah. She likes Vulcans.
Also, we get to see that Lon is still a little interesting. There's some more going on there with that girl than.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing I didn't super enjoy is like, so the first episode I really liked her. I liked her character. I like her towards the after this part too. She's fine, but it was just kind of like out of nowhere. Maybe they'll explain it more, but like I get that she's like chief of security.
Okay.
But she just came across too like better than everybody else, like realistically, like she shouldn't even be on Enterprise. Like she has no right to even be there, but like Pike wanted her there.
Right.
And now all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, basically like telling everybody that they're babies, like from getting like their shots and like mad and then throwing phasers around, which is like probably shouldn't do that as a security officer, but
yeah. And
then it was like you basically like gear up, like man up, let's get on this mission. And it's like, okay, it's a little much.
Yeah. I can agree with it. No, I can agree. She's a little rough around the edges in this episode more than
and
normal.
not to mention Spock like outranks her. Like she's
sure.
security, but like he's doesn't have to take orders from her,
Well, I think the thing that they're trying to do, and I totally agree with you, and I think the thing that they're trying to do is remember how Pike says to her the last episode, like, hey, I get that your record is like spotless and you excel in like everything, but just because you're excellent at what you do doesn't mean that you know everything, and really it's a team effort here.
You're right.
So you're kind of slowly seeing that she's trying to become a team and not just be I think the whole thing that they're trying to write to her is that she is like perpetually the lone survivor.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time until everyone around her dies and she's the last one living. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what they're trying to paint with her character.
I can see that. Yeah, that's fine.
But you're totally right. She definitely comes off as kind of like an arrogant jerk for the first few beats
Yeah.
of this like
Kinda
landing
like-
party sequence.
Kind of like for no reason too. And then
Yeah.
and then once like things do go bad, she just like does nothing. She like shuts down completely and like doesn't offer any help or anything.
Yeah.
She just stands there and it's like, wow.
You're
That's
really
good.
helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Good thing you were so tough on, before you beamed down. That's
Yeah.
good.
In the locker room. We're so
Yeah.
impressed with you.
Yeah. I was just anyway, that's just my small.
No, hey man, that's what we're here for. Hey, well, when we get there, we never know. She might make the list. We'll see. Okay, so materializing on
No,
the surface.
There's better things on my list.
Good. Okay.
Maybe,
Materializing
yeah.
on this.
Never
What's
mind.
that?
She might get the Porthos Award.
I figured so. Materializing on the surface, Spock and Lon make their way forward, but Uhura hangs back, taking in her new surroundings. Kirk asks if she was good, as she replies she was, taking in the idea of standing on the surface of a comet. The landing party makes its way inside the above-ground part of the structure, entering a chamber with what appears to be a large egg in its center. Spock's scans show the chamber has a breathable atmosphere. Lon moves to secure the perimeter while Spock continues his scans to make sure the room is secure. Kirk and Uhura approach the egg in the middle, seeing the markings. He asks whether they were merely decoration or some kind of language. Uhura is overwhelmed, and Kirk understands that she is a cadet and on her first away mission, but reminds her she was there for a reason. She approaches the egg, seeing that the patterns on it repeated in a sequence. Kirk decides to approach it, and the egg begins to glow. However, Spock detects a dangerous energy buildup within it and warns Kirk to step away from it. But it is too late. As he raises his hand to touch it, the energy discharges, knocking him across the room. Lon and Spock remove his helmet and scan his life signs, finding his heart has stopped. Lon tries to contact the ship for an emergency beam out, but the signal is spotty. Likewise, Kyle is having difficulty getting a transporter locked. Spock uses the defibrillator function on his tricorder to try and restart Kirk's heart. Kyle manages to get a lock and tries to energize, but the Comet's shields raise, blocking the signal. Spock is able to stabilize Kirk's condition, but their comms are being blocked. The landing party was now cut off from the ship. So this has like a very alien vibe to it, right? Like the original movie, like where they're walking, like looking, it's like
A big
this
egg.
big
yeah.
egg.
I liked it. So what's Kirk's role? He's
a xenoanthropologist.
okay.
So
great.
he's like he studies
his
like
first-
alien like anthropology is like the study of like human history. So it's alien history,
Gotcha.
like that type of stuff. Yeah.
So his first instinct was to immediately walk up and touch this big giant glowing.
Yeah. Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what his training tells him to do. When you don't know it, touch it.
Yep. Touch it. Can't be bad.
Yeah. That's what we've learned too from Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
He always is like, hey, if you don't know what it is, just put your hand on it.
Yeah, just lick it.
Just like it. Maybe the joke's on all of them. He wanted to die. He was like,
yeah,
I know what this is gonna do.
He's like, this mission is so boring. Yeah, that was funny. So that was kind of funny to me. Like he immediately was like out.
Yeah,
commission. That's good.
Yeah, definitely immediately showing you he is not his brother. Go ahead.
His brother would have tried to kiss it.
Oh yeah. Kiss it. But when he got flown across the room, his heart wouldn't have stopped. Would have made him more powerful than you could possibly imagine. And his shirt would have ripped a little bit too. His suit would have like ripped off, and yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. Funny. Good.
Lan's tricorder shows Kirk has sustained severe trauma from electrical shock and has put him under sedation, leading Uhura to suggest not touching anything else. Spock knows that Kirk will not survive without proper medical attention, and Lan scans also show the force field is back up, leading to Uhura to ask what kind of comet wanted to keep them there. Spock considers that a salient question, one that Uhura may be the only one to answer. Uhura reminds him that it is her first away mission, but Spock replies that she is the only linguistics expert here, and her knowledge might be able to decode the markings on the egg. In the Deleb village on the surface of the planet, one of the villagers approaches her young daughter, who worriedly points up at the comet as it glows brighter in the sky. She takes the child inside the nearby hut, her own expression that of concern as she steals a glance at the comet as well.
It'll be fine.
It's totally fine.
This is a big giant ball of it's getting closer and closer.
It's like, what is that?
Hmm.
The floating star has angered the gods. He is going to crush us.
What do they call it? I don't remember. What do they call it? What do those other aliens call that thing?
Oh, Mahani.
Mahani, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, aboard the Enterprise, Pike is also looking worried, but also determined. He pulls the bridge for ideas to save not only their own people, but the Deleb on the surface, who will die without their help. Ortega suggests phaser harmonics, setting their weapons to a higher frequency to counteract the shield. Una concurs, thinking the right frequency would shatter the shield. Pike approves the idea and orders Ortega's to bring the ship around.
What if we just shoot it more?
It's the same thought that they had last week, right? Oh
Yeah.
my God, how are we going to get Spock's retinal thing to change? Beam it into his eyes. That doesn't work. Do it. Oh my God,
Well,
we
yeah.
can't get our away.
Yeah, because even in this one,
shoot
so Pike, even that scene, Pike's like, he's like, I don't care if you have to break like
the laws of physics.
laws of physics, just do it. I'm like, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, that's
Yep. Sometimes the writing is not as tight in the show as it should be.
yeah.
That's the one thing I miss about this show. They do okay, but the one thing I miss is like they don't go ham in the technobabble, and that's like Star Trek 101.
Yeah.
As they're like, oh, well, if we just raise the phase inverter to 6.2% and we bring over it, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's literally where I learned like how to be an engineer, was on Enterprise.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, inside the Comet, Uhura is examining the markings as Spock asks how she is doing. Uhura admits she was pretending not to be way over her head before seeing Spock's expression and asking if that was too honest. Spock replies that Vulcans were often too honest, which Uhura thinks his girlfriend, Chapel, would appreciate. Spock replies that Chapel is not his girlfriend. Uhura knows this, but she points out that Chapel had been flirting with him. She is trying to add humor to diffuse tension. Thinking on what Pike had said at the dinner about things going so wrong, one had to laugh. Spock prefers rigorous logic to ease tensions, and Uhura concedes that would work too. As Spock moves away from her, Uhura turns to find Lon glaring at her before returning to work.
Yeah. Very helpful.
Extremely helpful.
Thanks, Lon. You just keep standing over there and being tough.
I'll just crouch. I'll crouch
Yeah.
near the patient and just burn a hole in your head with my eyeballs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't worry. I'll figure out this dead alien language. It'll be fine.
No worries. Yeah, you just keep doing that.
You just keep standing there looking awesome.
Una reports that the phasers were locked and ready, and Pike tells her to give the command. Before she can, the ship is shaken by a weapon's impact as a large vessel positions itself between the Enterprise and the Comet. Pike orders hailing frequencies, identifying himself and his ship, and asking why they have been fired upon. The other identifies his people as the Shepherds, causing Pike to glance at Ensign Christina at communications with some disbelief. Christina says that was how the universal translator had rendered it. The Shepherd captain explains that he is escorting Mahanit, which he calls far more than a comet, but one of the ancient arbiters of life. He then threatens to destroy the Enterprise if they attempt to tamper with it again. So I'll give you the good and I'll give you the bad. The good is I saw behind the scenes footage, and I might be able to find it and put it down below, of this Shepherd captain,
Yeah.
and he's not CGI. His background is, but he himself is not.
That's
He's
interesting.
like I think he's a guy in makeup, and like he has like things on him. So when I first saw it, I was like, man, the CGI is pulling a little strong here. But
Yeah, I kind of
but-
did too. But the
but
more you
it-
see him, the more you kind of notice, like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not.
and the bad
That's fine.
is, I have mixed feelings. Adri pointed it out when we watched this episode last year. It's kind of weird that when he calls himself the Shepherds, that Pike is like, really? The Shepherds is what you call yourself? It's kind of like, that's kind of mean. Like, so what if they're called that? Like, you're supposed to be understanding, and like he's an alien
Yeah.
race. Like, who cares what he's called?
That's funny.
And I get it that they try to bill it as like, well, how could they be called the Shepherds? And she's like, well, that's what the universal translator is saying. But just the way his actual facial expression is more like, really? It's not like
Yeah, it's funny. It's
wasn't
funny
like the
because,
guy
like,
got on the comms and was like, yes, we are the poopy pants. And he was like, poopy pants.
Really?
You know what I mean? It was something like the name made sense. Like,
yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that either, because like I kind of liked that scene. I thought it was kind of funny that he was like, is the communicator wrong, or is that
right.
But that's
I think,
true.
honestly, what it
What
should
do
have
you
been
want them
written
to be
as,
called? The watchers or the observers? Or...
right. I think, honestly, what should have happened is he would be like, we are the Shepherds and blah, blah, blah. And he talks about it. And then when the comms end, he goes over and he's like, and then she's like, Captain, we're having issues with the universal translator. The name that they're calling themselves isn't translating well, and it's only coming up as the Shepherds. Like, that needed to be more of the scene than him being like,
He did kind of react like they were calling themselves like the apostles.
right. Yeah, exactly. Because then he was like, zealots, more like it, idiot.
Stupid heads. Stupid poopy pants.
Poopy pants, exactly.
That is true. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's just a little
For
on
him to
Star
just
Trek.
immediately be like, that's stupid.
Yeah. Like, to me, that's normal, like sci-fi fare. Like, that's fine, but it's not Star Trek. Star Trek is very much when they're like, we are the grass eaters. Everybody's like, oh, honorable grass eaters, we love you. Like, that's just what it is. Like, yeah.
That's true. That is true. That is kind of a weird stance, especially later on in the episode. And he's like, he's like, do you consider yourself to be open-minded? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, all right, so here's what we believe in. And he's immediately like, that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like, comets don't do these, but it's
This
like,
is
it has
stupid.
a force field that it's got this, like, obviously you don't see the inside of it, but it's got this, like,
Yeah. Well, let's keep digging in.
Yeah.
Pike turns to Una and orders her to scan the ship, finding out what kind of weapons they were dealing with, before turning back to the Shepherd captain to explain that their intentions were not hostile. Mahanit was about to impact an inhabited planet, and they were trying to divert its trajectory. The Shepherd calls it absurd, comparable to changing the height of a wave or the position of the stars. Mahanit's course was preordained. Pike protests that the impact will destroy Mahanit and also kill millions of people on the surface. The Shepherd suddenly asks if he was a reasonable man, and Pike replies that he would like to think so. The Shepherd then asks him to entertain the proposition that Mahanit was not a comet, but an instrument, an arbiter. It would move if it willed it, and bring life if it so chose. If it chose to die and to take the planet along with it, then it would as well. The Shepherd reiterates that Mahanit's course was preordained. Pike is incensed by this, saying that destroying an inhabited planet was not preordained. The Shepherd counters that Pike had said he was a reasonable man, so how could he know? His people had been charged with protecting their arbiters for as long as they could remember. It was not their prerogative to interfere, nor was it Pike's. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. So I think it's supposed to be more of like a written beat that Pike somehow is just, I don't know, closed-minded about these guys.
But he's also like incensed because he's so sick of like things being like preordained that he's
Yeah,
like, can't
and maybe
accept
that's
the
what
fact.
it is. Yeah. That's a good point. I never thought about that. He would probably be really.
It's a direct like correlation of like his inevitable future being portrayed in
That's a
this
good
comment
point.
where he's saying like, no, that's not what this is doing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So, and
That's a
it
good
kind of
point.
makes him at the end, it kind of like tests his belief system a little bit to think like number one was right. And maybe I can still do both and not become a horrifying radiation monster. Maybe if I know what's going to happen, I can change things a little bit.
Yeah. It's true.
But as we've seen from Final Destination, that doesn't work out very well.
They'd always find you.
It always gets you.
Seeing Una has news for him, Pike pauses the communication before expressing his opinion of the shepherds to be more like zealots. Una reports the shepherd vessel was faster and more advanced than the Enterprise, with Ortegas assessing their weapons capability by simply saying they wouldn't want to piss them off. Pike asks how they could divert the Comet without doing that. Una insists they buy time for the landing party to get the force field down, with Pike expressing the hope the shepherds don't know they're down there. He orders Christina to resume communications, saying that while the shepherd had their sacred duty, the Federation has theirs, and while he did not intend to disrespect Mahani, they couldn't just let a planet die. The shepherd captain retorts that while Pike was talking about respect and non-interference, they have indeed detected the landing party in the temple on the surface, calling their presence blasphemy. Mahani will be there too, the shepherd captain goes on, adding that any attempt to rescue them would be an act of war before closing the channel. Pike orders the crew to get through to the landing party, even if they had to break the laws of physics to do so. I like the design of the ship. I like the design of the
Oh, the ship is cool.
Yeah,
It's pretty sweet. I really like too, like that, like behind the scenes, like talking about like, well, let's just hope, like, he's basically like we're outgunned and faster speed. So let's play this a little close to the chest and maybe, let's not let them in on the fact that like we have people on the surface, because that wouldn't be good. And then like they immediately talk back to him. He's like, yeah, we already know about your people. Like,
yeah.
if you try to rescue them, we're going to blow you up.
It's almost like you almost feel like it's the scene from Galaxy Quest where she didn't really mute him. And he's like, oh, phew. And he gives her the like cut off thing. And then he tells him the plan of action to destroy the bad guys. And then he comes back and it's like, you weren't muted. He knows everything you just said. And he's like, that's what this means. This means turn off the mic. And she's like, I thought it meant like we're dead, we're gone. He's like, why would it be that? Why would I do that?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's funny.
All right, Gwen. Put me back on with it.
Well, I'm trying to tell you, you are back.
Perhaps I'm not as stupid as I am ugly, Commander.
Gave you the kill gesture.
Yeah, no, you gave me the word dead signal. I was agreeing with you, like I know where the hold button is.
Inside the temple, Uhura continues her scans of the egg, while La'an and Spock check on Kirk's condition, which appears to be stable. La'an then coldly asks about Uhura's progress, whether she would get them out or get them killed. Uhura replies it was a toss-up. As she works, Uhura begins humming to herself again, something Spock notices as a sign of distress, telling her the situation was less dire than it had been. Plus, Kirk had found one thing to avoid, which increased her odds of success. Uhura asks if that was his version of a pep talk, and he concedes it was, and had been working on them. before asking her opinion. She notes he shouldn't take his foot off the gas on that one. Spock reminds her she was achieving her stated objective of learning new alien languages. Uhura says only that, like Spock had implied, she wasn't supposed to be there at all. Someone actually Starfleet. Spock asks, given that it was her first away mission, if it was also the first time her life had been in danger, and she confirms it was. Spock notes that confrontations with one's mortality gave them an outside perspective. She did not intend to be there, but she was there, and she was the only person for the job. Will you rise to see it through? He queries. Uhura says that pep talk was better, before returning to work, humming to herself. Spock notices a resonance within the chamber. It was reacting to the humming. She hums some more, noticing the effect as well, and realizing the chamber was responsive to music. Pretty neat.
Yeah, that was cool. I like, and they set that up very early on, which is very cool too.
It's also a funny thing that you'll get into. I don't know if it's in any of the episodes I'll show. It might be, but it's also like a funny thing of 60s television was like, how do we get singing in here? How can we make people sing in anything that we have?
Oh, that's a
yeah.
thing?
So she's very known for, in the original series, like singing. There's very like famous scenes of her singing. So it's kind of funny to be like, well, yeah, of course Uhura likes to hum and sing and do all this stuff. So
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, you won't. But
I don't remember any of that. Like from what I remember from the original series, I don't remember.
No, yeah. Because it's one of those things where it's more like 60s television and not like character writing.
Yeah.
That's fun. Back on the Enterprise, Una has been unable to reach the landing party, but is detecting a signal coming from the comet itself. Putting it on speaker, it is a melodic tune, almost like wind chimes, and a tune Pike recognizes. He asks the computer to identify the song, Vamu Vamba, a traditional song from Kenya on Earth. Pike knows this is not a coincidence. Inside the temple, the chamber harmonizes with Uhura's vocalizations, and Spock sees that the lights and sounds respond differently to different pitch. Kirk had thought the markings to be some kind of code, and Uhura theorizes that the code was harmonic. Harmonics were the ratio between frequencies, each musical note corresponding to a certain frequency. La'an wonders why an alien race would write music the same way they did. Spock replies that musical notes are easily derived from math, and the Vulcans theorize their fundamental nature makes them pleasing to the ear. Uhura asks one of them to match her pitch as she begins humming a single note. La'an stays out of it, saying she would probably break the thing. And so Spock joins her, their vocalizations matching their harmonics until, finally, the egg opens, and the room is radiating with light. La'an thinks this is a step closer to solving the genius or get us all killed conundrum, to which Uhura says it was the right time for genius. A series of eerie melodies echoes through the room, which Spock speculates is the comet's method of communication. La'an wonders how that could be used to conceive it. La'an wonders how that could be used to convince it to lower the force field. To answer, Uhura vocalizes with the same melody, and the room begins to shake. The funny thing is, this. Have you ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, this reminded me of that. When the aliens come down and they're like meeting with it, they have like the keyboard, and it's like, bum, bum,
oh
bum,
yeah,
bum. It's like
yeah. Okay, that I remember.
Yeah. So that just made me think like you're stealing from other material. Like we've seen this.
Yeah.
That's okay. I wasn't like, it didn't bother me. I was just like the exact, almost like her exact humming and like pitch frequency was like almost right on the money.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum.
It seemed very familiar to me while I was watching, but I couldn't really place why.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I can obviously find the clip of third encounter, but I don't know if they'll have this clip I can find of her humming. But if I
Yeah.
can, I'll try to put like the two together and show like how similar it is. Okay, it seems to have the desired effect aboard the Enterprise. Una detects the shield dropping. Pike orders the transporter room to beam them out. Chapel rushes to the transporter room as the landing party returns and helps Lon take Kirk to sickbay. Knowing how the Shepherds will likely react, Pike orders red alert. Christina reports the Shepherds were hailing, and Pike orders the channel open. The Shepherd captain accuses him of attempting to interfere and is not interested in Pike's assertion to find some common ground. You were warned, is all the captain says before closing the channel. Ortega sarcastically thinks that went well, just as the ship is shaken by weapons impact. The Shepherd vessel has launched torpedoes at them, and Pike orders the crew to brace for impact. So the two funny things. Well, one's
Yeah.
not funny, but I always think about it. There's a couple times in the show so far where it's like all of a sudden they just show up,
Yeah.
and you're like, where's the line where they're like, sick bay, report to transporter room 3, the landing crew's coming. It's like, did they have comms open or something? Like, I always wonder about that. Like,
Yeah.
she just comes running in, and I'm like, how did she know?
Yeah, because before they used to have to push a button and then be like,
Right.
this is the bridge to sick bay.
And the other
That's
thing
what
that
I-
made
I love that, but even like it's even in like emergencies. So like if something's happening here and you're like, Archer's fighting somebody and he has to be like, hey, this is Archer to the bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's really impractical to like have full
really
comms
is.
with your ship.
It really, really is. Another thing that made me laugh was so Ortega's here sarcastically is like, that went well, and then the ship is shook by the thing. And I was thinking, hey, if you weren't such an idiot and being like, good job, Captain, you'd be like, weapons incoming.
If you did your job properly, yeah. What's funny too is I didn't notice is like back on Enterprise, like it would show like the ship getting hit from the outside, and then like everybody on the bridge, and then they would be like,
yeah.
I didn't really notice that super.
Yeah.
You would think like if the shields really did their job properly, like the whole inside of the ship wouldn't like shake violently like that. It would just kind of reverb the energy.
Yeah.
But that's a classic.
It's a thing where some shows get it right and some shows get it different.
Different. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah. But they call it the bump.
Yeah.
So they'll say to them, they'll off camera to the actors, they'll say, okay, it's a number 4. And then they'll say off camera, they'll go, hit. And then they all go like, oh, in their seats, whatever. It's pretty funny.
That's funny. Yeah,
There's
that's pretty funny.
There's a clip from Will Wheaton's board game YouTube channel. I think it was called like Geek and Sundry. I forgot what his thing was called.
Yeah.
And him and 709 Jerry Ryan were on it, and he was expressing like that doesn't matter what Star Trek show you've been on, there's like an unspoken thing that they can do, and he said that it's the bumps. So he just literally says okay, and he goes hit, and her and him, they're literally going like this in the seats next to each other, and it's like hit, and they're all doing like the thing. It's really funny. I'll have to see if I can find it. It's really good.
That's great.
The Star Trek spaceship bump is one of the very few things that is the common language of Star Trek that binds every Star Trek actor together, regardless of what ship you served on. I mean, show you were on.
The Enterprise flies evasively to avoid the Shepherd's weapons fire. La'an asks if they should return fire, but Pike refuses, continuing to order evasive maneuvers. La'an suggests warping out and regrouping, as facing off alone would be suicide. Una is forced to agree, given the Shepherd's advanced technology. Spock explains his theory that the Comet was trying to communicate with them through the music they recorded, but Uhura warns the analysis of the sounds could take days. Spock points out that the Comet would impact Persephone 3 in less than an hour. Pike orders phasers locked onto the Shepherd's weapons and propulsion systems and has Ortega bring them about into firing position. A single phaser blast scores a direct hit, forcing the Shepherds to pull back and regroup, giving the Enterprise a minute to regroup as well. Pike saw how they were able to lower the comet's shields, so asks about moving the comet itself. Ortegas is sure that the crazy space monks will destroy them if they try to move it, which sets Spock to thinking, what if the comet moved itself?
Mhm.
Okay, here's a big meat log. Here we go. The Enterprise accelerates to full impulse, and the Shepherds are gaining on them. Pike asks Ortegas if she remembered how she bragged about how she'd be the best pilot to graduate the academy, saying only word gets around, at her surprised look. When Ortegas asks what his point was, Pike tells her it was time to prove it by getting them in front of that comet. Ortegas initiates an evasive pattern of her own devising, taking the ship into the comet's tail while the Shepherds pursue them. Though they score several hits, the Shepherds stop firing when they realize the comet is in their firing arc. The Shepherds are trying to hail them, but Pike tells them not to reply yet. The only impacts the Enterprise takes now are from the cometary debris before reaching the front of the comet. Ortegas brings the ship about and to a full stop, and Pike orders all systems except life support disabled before responding to the Shepherds. Pike offers to surrender as his ship appears to have suffered from total systems failure. When the Shepherd captain asks what would happen if he didn't accept, Pike replies that the Enterprise will collide with the comet, igniting the trilithium resin in the warp core and utterly destroying it, which will also occur if the Shepherds destroy the ship themselves. He asks for the Shepherds' help, promising not to touch Mahani again. The Shepherd captain does not reply, instead closing the channel. Una warns that Pike is taking a big gamble, of which Pike is aware. A moment later, the bluff seems to pay off. The Shepherds activate a tractor beam. Okay.
Yeah. So finally for me in Star Trek, do we get to see like some good like space ship like battle,
Yeah, like flying and like moving
like
around.
maneuverability and things that are
Yeah.
important in like a spaceship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was always my thing too with like Enterprise, is that like they would be in these like space battles and like wars and stuff,
Yeah.
and they would have like they like couldn't turn
No.
or like maneuver. Like the ship very much is just always like moving, and it gets shot and just repeatedly gets shot, and these other ships are just like shooting on top of it, and the Enterprise is just like
Yeah.
and it's like, dude,
move a
so
little bit.
finally we see the Enterprise like, you know, banking and veering and doing these cool like maneuvers and stuff.
Yeah.
The shot specifically where it like turns and the blasters like go like between like the engine cells and like the saucer, like so good.
Yeah.
And then they're going through the asteroid field, and you
Yeah.
can see like when the asteroids like bounce off the shield, like the
Yeah.
plating as it's going through. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's super good.
It is super good. Hey,
And then Spock pulls a Boba Fett.
certainly does. Hiding on the I think he pulls a Jango Fett, right? He's hiding on the
Yeah, I think they both do it. Yeah.
Yeah, they probably do.
Boba does it to follow the Millennium Falcon.
Oh
in
yeah,
the
he does do
Return
it
of
to
the
follow
Jedi.
the Millennium Falcon. So it was
He's
a
on a
dirty,
piece of junk, dirt, debris from the.
Yeah, and it was a dirty thing that they did to me that made me think Django did it first, but really Boba did it first.
Well, it doesn't matter who did it first. It's the same dude.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Mr.
yeah, I was just
Spock-
super happy to see like space, like good space stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. No. Well, we'll see where it stands.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I hate it. Mr. Spock, you're up. Pike says Spock is aboard the shuttlecraft Galileo, which is clung to the underside of one of the larger chunks of debris and now approaches the comet's nucleus. The shuttle's shields begin radiating heat, which causes the comet to begin to fracture. Spock maintains position, avoiding the heat shields, though is forced to avoid a large piece of the comet in very close proximity. Aboard the Enterprise, Una consults her console, showing that the sublimation was working. The comet's course was being diverted, and Pike notes for the record that they did not actually touch it, keeping his word to the Shepherds. Uhura wonders what has become of Spock before a hint of static comes over the comms. followed by the sound of Spock laughing. Pike wonders if everything was all right, and Spock confirms it was, again noting Pike's disbelief that sometimes things go so badly that you just have to laugh, earning a chuckle from the bridge crew. Both Spock and Una observe a large quantity of water vapor entering Persephone 3's atmosphere, which would change the atmospheric composition to decrease the planet's aridity and promote plant growth, and with it, perhaps, societal development. The shepherds hail again, the captain remarking on the glory and the mercy that is Mahanit, and Pike agrees that they had witnessed a miracle. Perhaps in the future, the shepherd captain adds, the Federation would not be so quick to judge the faith of others. And now they need to not part as enemies. The crew is relieved as the channel closes. On the surface, the Deleb are amazed to see water coming from the sky and laugh with joy at the idea as the comet continues to cross the sky.
Yeah, I really love that Spock part where he, like, the comms open and he's just laughing. I love that. You could tell it was like a fake, like he did that just for them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good beat that they had. You could kind of feel like they were building to it. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Captain's log supplemental. I am left to wonder who made the comet. How many more like it are out there? Was it coincidence that fostered the chance for more life on Persephone 3, or something more? In the conference room, Uhura explains that they had already figured out how to convert musical notes to numbers, but she figured out how to turn the numbers into numerical coordinates. Pike asks if the coordinates painted a picture, and Uhura confirms it, but not just any kind of picture. It showed a star chart of its movements through the Persephone system, including a course that took it past Persephone 3, meaning it did not intend to impact the planet. If Spock had not done his work with the shuttle, however, it would have impacted the planet, and Uhura admits that this is where it got weirder. The comet's message indicated a chunk of ice that would have broken off from it as it passed by, which was completely identical in size and shape to the chunk that broke off when Spock flew his mission, which meant the comet knew about it before Spock corrected its course. The comet's trajectory and its apparent mission to seed Persephone 3 with life was apparently predicted on the idea that Spock would have to fly the shuttle to move it, meaning it had foreknowledge of the future. It knew its fate, you might say, she sums up. This strikes something of a chord with Pike, who smiles at the thought and thanks her for the report.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like definitely a pretty interesting beat to have that be a thing for the comet. That, like, which I like, is very Star Trek, where these guys come in, these shepherds come in, they're like, listen, 4 centuries, this is what's happened, and this is blah blah, and then everybody's like, okay, whatever. And then something happens and they're like, oh, maybe there's some truth to it.
Yeah, right. Well, seeing the whole interior of the comet and like how all that stuff worked, it's kind of, you're like, yeah, it's not a comet really, it's a species. It's like it's a sentient being essentially.
It's clearly like there's more going on here than just a weird comet. It's like, hey, it has force fields and a giant subterranean structure, and it also has a weird egg inside of it, and it speaks in music. Like, perhaps there's more happening here than a giant rock hurtling through space.
Yep.
Spock walks with her in the corridor, recalling what he had said about many dreaming of being in Starfleet and representing its values of selflessness, courage, and sacrifice. Uhura begins to say that she knew it shouldn't have been her down there, but Spock cuts her off, as he hadn't finished. He admits that the odds of their survival had been quite low, and that no pep talk could have increased them. He understands that she did not come to Starfleet the way many of them did, and indeed wasn't sure she wanted to stay. However, after her actions on the comet, he expresses a certainty that, should she choose to stay, Starfleet would be fortunate to have her. Uhura lets that thought sink in as Spock continues through the ship. So the thing I liked, he gives a really nice, like, actual Spock speech to her. Like,
Yeah.
I like that, and I like that when that moment happens where he's like, maybe you should stay. It was like it did that, like, bah, 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 like,
Yeah. I did like that.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was nice.
Yeah, that was pretty cute.
It was pretty cool. All right, so in his cabin, Pike observes the comet continuing on its course, marveling at how a little piece of ice and dust roaming through space could bring life. Una bets that none of them could have predicted how, and Pike agrees. Una goes on to say that receiving a message from the future didn't mean they understood it. Pike recognizes that they were not talking about the comet anymore. Una urges him not to throw his life away. Pike thinks he accepted his fate, but Una is not convinced, asking if he might be wrong, if he could save the cadets, and that would be it. How did he know he couldn't make a different choice, one that would save him? What if his fate is what he made it? Alone afterwards, Pike asks the computer to bring up the files on certain Federation citizens: Dusty Swender, Jaquel Dawn, Malik Al-Alcazar, Yuto Hoshide, and Andrea Lopez, who are children in the present, but will be Starfleet cadets in the future. And that concludes the episode.
Yeah.
So there we go. Yeah, so it's interesting. As you said, the Comet, the Shepherds, everything is about thinking ahead, and is fate a thing? Can you avoid fate? Things of that nature. So as I told you, I think after we concluded watching The Cage, I was like, hey, so they're going to tell you that Pike knows his future, and it's going to be a thing through the whole season.
Yeah.
Just
That's
getting
fine.
into it.
I like it. I like it so far.
Yeah,
I like
yeah, they
that,
do a good job at layering it in.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Like, if you knew your future, like, what would you do? Would you do anything different? And
yeah,
seems like even he's like reminding himself of like the kids, like, constantly, that like, am I gonna sacrifice myself or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's cool.
All right.
Caleb.
All right, so we're here at the awards part, and Caleb is going to let us know who gets the Elizabeth Cutler Award as being the most forgettable.
I'll go with the security officer on that one.
La'an, okay.
Yeah, she came in real hot and heavy and strong and opinionated, and then just did nothing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. The other two I thought were maybe going to be on the table were Hemmer and our guy.
Yeah, well, they set him
Kirk.
up. Oh, Kirk is pretty forgettable too. Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, it's what you want.
Yeah,
I just
he immediately gets blown up, and
but no, so what do you think? Okay, so I'll put it to you. I don't want to influence you too bad, but are you sticking with Lon?
No, Kirk is a better choice, honestly.
Oh, okay.
No, I wasn't even. I mean, honestly. So here's the deal. Okay. I wasn't even thinking about Kirk. So right there it tells you he's pretty forgettable. I forgot he was even in the episode until you just said it.
Fair enough. There you go. All right. So then, who gets the MVP award? Who gets the Trip Tucker award? Who's the MVP?
O'Hara.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I agree. She's pretty heavy in the episode, and so yeah.
I like seeing her data pad too, which was cool.
Yeah,
it looked like she's actually like writing.
Yeah,
that's a pretty cool touch. Like,
I agree.
It's like a writing pad now.
Yeah, it's like with the stylus, and she's like writing.
Yeah, that's cool. It's clearly just an Apple pen. Didn't it look like an Apple pencil?
I mean, it probably is to some degree.
It's probably an iPad, and then they 3D printed like a case that it goes in that looks like the data pad, and then she's got the
probably
black screen with the writing. Yeah.
Okay, who gets the Shran Award? What was the best action sequence of the episode?
That's gonna go to Spock
Ooh.
when he flies his little shuttle
Oh.
pilot through the comet and stuff. That's a pretty good scene.
Okay.
He's going through the comet and then he's got to like thread the needle. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Nice. I agree.
Plus, he pulls a Boba Fett and a Jango Fett, and like a covert mission, so that the
Yeah.
aliens don't see he's out there. Yeah, it's pretty good.
And an Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I just picture like, so you know that meme of like Obi-Wan when he's in the thing and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
just doing.
Yeah.
So I picture that's just Spock. Spock's doing that.
When nobody's around, right? He just lets all his emotions out. Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, he can finally have emotion.
I love it. Okay, so what gets the NX award? What is some sweet ship stuff that happens that you like?
I really got to say, like, I talked a lot about how good the action scene is, like out in space. But I gotta say, Pike's quarters and his like dining area is pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet addition on the ship. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I really
like it.
enjoyed it. I really
I like
enjoyed it because you can see how it's not so like Archer's eating quarters is like very much like a military, like, okay, this is where you eat. It's like a
Right.
table. That's it. But this is like, it's comfort. And the Federation is more comfort now. It's set up for like entertaining.
Laid back, yeah.
So like before, like with Archer, it's like intimate. Like you get invited to the captain's quarters. Like it's great, right? Because it's a close knit thing. But it just seems like now for Pike, it's like if you get invited to the captain's quarter, it's gonna be like a nice, like 5-star dinner and just like a nice like hangout section.
Absolutely.
So I'll give it to that. I give it that.
Nice.
In the fireplace.
Yeah. Zoom in on the fireplace. This is my favorite part of it.
Just that scene where he's just staring. You can see through the fire. He's staring at like his face.
Yeah. All right. Here comes your favorite part. What gets the Porthos Award? What's the cheesiest?
Cheesiest part. I'd probably give that one to Lon, security officer. Her big like, well, if you guys are done whining, let's get on with the mission.
Okay.
That
Just
scene
kind of
is
that locker room.
it's pretty
sequence.
cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I like the
You guys
updated spacesuits too. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah, that's true. We
They're
didn't
pretty
talk
sweet.
about that. Yeah. They're very similar to like what we have now in like our actual modern society. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Because you think about it, like, which is funny because like we go from original
Enterprise
space
suits are like a
to like what we
deep-sea
have
diving.
now to Enterprise, which has like original 60s spacesuits to now straight. It's just like this back and forth thing.
Yeah. The Enterprise the suit to me was just a deep sea diving suit like from the 40s. And I loved it.
Yeah. Grab Bhutan.
Turn it clockwise more. Oh no, Captain, I have to cut through it. Get out of here.
Go.
Save yourself, Captain. I love that stuff.
So, what gets the Enterprise Award? What's the best scene of the episode?
That's got to be how Pike outsmarts the shepherds and flies towards the comet, knowing that they're not going to shoot towards the comet. Flying through the little asteroids,
like the comet as like a
safety net.
Yeah,
it just shows like how smart he is on a dime too, because like he knows he can't outgun him, he can't outrun him, but he says like, if we hide on the comet, they're not going to shoot at us. They're not going to essentially like try to like hurt the comet. So I guess it's pretty smart.
I like it. I like it too.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that was our award section.
It's either that or the rain. It's just that end. Oh, the sky's crying.
We don't know what crying is.
We don't have tears. We are reptilian aliens. Thank you.
We have no idea. So next
Never seen the water
week's-
before.
Yeah. Next week's episode will be episode 3 of Strange New Worlds, entitled Ghosts of Illyria.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I feel like we do this every week.
Well, it's gonna be funny because all these they sound good, and then you'll get ones, and it'll be like backdoor friend. You'll be like, "What does that mean?"
I don't think that's right. Oh, box shorts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the really funny thing is as in Kirk's era, they're very like Shakespearean titles, which are really funny. It's always like, "He who weeps the most is the strongest among the fellows." It's like,
That's so true. Wow.
yeah.
That's really
So
funny.
that's the thing I always like, and some of the shows still try to borrow that type of feel, but yeah, like almost I don't say all of them, like 60% of them are all like that.
I'm trying to remember titles like Enterprise episodes that were like very long, and I don't remember.
No,
really
they're all
many.
like one or two word ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so next week we will be covering episode 2, Ghost of Illyria. And this is the part where we conclude. And so if you liked what you liked, like the video. If you didn't like what you saw, dislike that video. Subscribe for more content. Ring that bell for notifications because we're doing weekly things. And the cool thing is, if you like Star Trek stuff, soon, probably in a couple weeks, there may be some live play of Caleb and I and a couple other friends of ours playing the Star Trek Adventures RPG. Stick close to the channel to see that when it gets released, when we get together and record it. So it'll be a little bit before that happens. But in the meantime, you can go over to Caleb's channel and you can watch him build props, 3D print things, paint them, and put together some good ideas. He's doing a Pokemon Gotta Print 'em All thing right now, so that's been pretty cool.
That's very intermittent.
Yeah,
I knew it was going to be a large project. The problem is that when I hit certain ones that I don't care about, it's just like
the slog. Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I did like Pidgey. It's just like
I almost
don't even
wonder
care about
when you
painting
said that in your
Pidgey.
video. No, you didn't say it in your video. You posted about it. I was thinking maybe the thing to alleviate the boredom of printing Pokemon that you're not exactly like thrilled to do, like Pidgeys and Rattatas, is perhaps just what you focus on to make it more fun for you is like the terrain. The terrain is like super detailed and fun for you, and then you just
I know.
So
It's hard too because like once I get like them all done, I want the thing to kind of flow together. So it's like already I have a couple that like the terrain is more like detailed, obviously on the ones I care about.
Okay.
And then like they just kind of get plain.
Well, that's okay. I think as you go along, you'll know which ones you'll need to put around. So maybe like Mr. Mime and Jinx will be on grass, and you can mash those guys up close to Pidgey or something.
That's what's funny too, is like when I'm looking for like references and stuff and like kind of based on like games. So it's okay, so where are they're all found in tall grass. And there's like a few of them that are like in mountains and caves. And then water, obviously, but
right.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So on top of making things, we also do podcast type things over on his channel, the Nerd Holes, where we've been covering Indiana Jones. We just did Across the Spider-Verse, and we're gonna do the new Indiana Jones, and we have some other series in the making. And then somewhere down the line, we'll have other ideas, and whatever kind of is either just interesting to us at the time or sometimes new movies coming out that has it's a long franchise and we haven't watched it, like James Bond, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, things of that nature. We'll go back. Let's watch everything. Jurassic Park. Let's go watch everything before we go see the new movie in theaters. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the things to look out for. But just like this, every month we're doing Dragon Ball. Period.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah. Yeah, so that comes out on the 19th, Monday, the 19th. It's coming out a couple weeks. Next Monday.
So
no, next Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. So from my scheduling,
Oh, you already
if
same
everything
day.
goes well and I edit this well and I have the time to edit it, you should be able to go onto his channel tomorrow and watch it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's a fun series. Just like this, with like it's my first time going through all of Star Trek. This is Will's first time going through Dragon Ball into Dragon Ball Z.
yeah.
So yeah,
I
it's
want
pretty fun.
pole extend. I don't know why I love it so much, but I really do.
The power pole's great. I mean, it's one of those things where like the Nimbus cloud and the power pole kind of fades out of existence,
I can imagine.
because once you become
It's
like
cool.
super powerful and glowing and lightning bolts come out of you,
Right.
kind of really don't need a power pole, or
And you could
to
just
on
fly
a
whenever
Nimbus
you
when
want
can
to.
fly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just doesn't really. So
It's over 9,000.
enjoy it while you can is what I'm saying.
This has been the Retrek Review. We appreciate you sticking around and watching all the way through. And we look forward to being here next week when we'll cover next week's episode. Thanks for watching. See ya.
See ya. You can either watch everybody else, or you can join our Federation of Nerd Holes and reach for our podcast.
Oh, hello there. This is Lieutenant Commander Wilbur reporting in. Just have a few words that my commanding officer wanted to share with you. That the Retrek Review is a Via Non Capta podcast and is produced in association with the Plastic Underground Props. Hosted by Caleb Stoddard and Will Wilbur. Edited by Will Wilbur. Our intro song is by Kaylee Joy Rookledge. Our theme song is by Samo Studios. And our outro song is by Tommy T. Title card art created by Caleb Stoddard. Trophy art created by Adri Wilbur of Love by the Letters. Synopsis and written plot provided by MemoryAlpha.com. Star Trek is created by Gene Roddenberry, and all official clips and pictures are owned by Paramount Pictures. You can follow us at the Plastic Underground Props and Via Non Capta on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for watching as always, and keep an eye out, because you never know what's going to happen. All right, everyone, welcome to the Retrek Review. My name is Caleb. This is my co-host.
Will.
Thank you. And
Funny.
well, let me do that again because I meant to say the other way around, and then I just went with it. Okay, wow, that was funny.
I am
don't know
Will.
why I
I
called-
love Star Trek. Everything about Star Trek is my favorite.
I wish I could talk more about Star Trek. I'm starting a new channel. It's
But
about only about Star Trek,
But I can't.
but I'm not allowed to. Wow, that's hilarious. I think I looked at your name and my brain was like, "Not your name now."
I thought you were doing a bit.
I wish I really was. I just went with it. No, I just went with it.
That makes
I was
it even
like,
funnier.
No, I can't make that work. It's too weird.
Can't swing it. We haven't had that many episodes yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You figured it out. Yeah, you figured it out.